Actually, that's very passive writing, and as a writer, I object to that.
Whatever. Okay.
Whatever. Whatever. Okay.
Do coffee beans make you fart the same way regular beans do? Hi everybody, welcome back to Wellness Wizards. Today we will be interviewing Ben Rekhi. So we're looking forward to that. Another special interview episode coming up today.
I'm going to introduce our special guest today. So we're introducing Ben Rekhi, who's a screenwriter, director, and producer. And some of his notable works have included very thought-provoking films such as Waterborne, The Ashram, Watch List, and The Reunited States.
Thought-provoking. I will take it. Thank you, Rachna. Hi, Maya. Hi, Neal. Excited to be here.
Ben Rekhi also happens to be our uncle, as you can tell from the last name. And you might be thinking, why are we interviewing a Hollywood screenwriter, director, and producer for our health podcast? But we have our reasons. Ben Chacha has lived in Hollywood for a long time. He's changed a lot since he was my age.
So he's had a really strong motivation, and I'm just so proud of you because you've made a lot of very positive changes in your life. And so today we're going to focus on talking about motivation when it comes to health, both physical and mental health, in the context of lifestyle medicine. So there are 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine. So one is nutrition, primarily whole foods, plant-based nutrition, physical activity, restorative sleep, stress reduction, avoidance of risky substances, and social connectedness. Okay?
Sounds good.
All right.
Let's get into it.
Ben Chashu, our parents always try to set a good example for us. They're always making sure that we get healthy foods, get exercise, get lots of rest. And they have to model all that for us. But when you come, you take us hiking and make us think about more important things. But we are kids. You have to do all the good things in front of us to set an example. What do you like when you're not around us?
What am I like when I'm not around you guys? That's a really good question. I, first off, like to keep a little bit of childlike wonder in my own life. I think as we get older or grow up, there's a tendency to be more serious and take life very seriously, and that causes a lot of stress. And I think one thing that children have that can teach us is this carefree wonder about the world. And of course, a lot of responsibility comes in once you start financially responsible for your own life and get a job. But I really think if you don't have that childlike wonder, you lose one of the most special things about being human, which is curiosity. So what am I like when I'm not around you guys? I'm a very curious adult child. I work really hard, and I also try and not take things too seriously.
Okay. You only told us the good habits, but what about the bad habits?
Oh, yes. Okay, bad habits. Well, I think one of the biggest challenges we face growing up is being our own worst enemy. And by that I mean we make things harder for ourselves than we need to. And there's so much emphasis put on physical health and diet and exercise. But the one thing that will determine the quality of your life, almost more than anything, is your own mind and how you take care of it and how it can work for you or against you. And some of the bad habits that happen when people stress too much or deal with depression or negative emotions is they try and change how they feel by taking substances or doing things that are harmful to themselves. You know, there's this saying that we are our own worst enemy, and that kind of indicates that there's something that we're doing to ourselves that we have control over, but we're not able to realize that we have that control. And so for me, I guess the biggest part was, struggling with some of these negative emotions and trying to resolve them in ways that were making them worse.
So, I mean, I know that, even since I've known you, that you have struggled with depression. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? How have you been able to overcome it, and how have you been able to deal with it in your own life?
Yeah, depression, comes in many forms, but I guess the easiest way to describe it is an intense sadness that dominates your life. And when you feel that way, it can be very scary. You can feel like there's no way out of it. It runs in in the family, oftentimes it's genetic, and it also is linked with certain things like addiction and other habits that are not so great. For me, depression was something I dealt with a lot through my 20s and even into my early 30s. And it can be crippling. It can be, you don't necessarily want to go out and talk to people. You don't necessarily feel like motivated. And that's it becomes sort of like a sand pit where the more you struggle to get out of it, the deeper you fall into it. And there's a lot of different ways to get around it, but I think one of the biggest ones is social connectedness, like being able to talk about it and feel not so alone. And being out in nature has a really healing quality to it as well. But the biggest thing is to take it seriously and seek help if you need it, from friends, from medicine, from therapies. And for me, like, a big motivation was, if you feel this way, how do you proactively work to get out of it?
Okay, so you don't look like you're in depression right now, so what motivated you to change your lifestyle?
Well, when you realize something isn't serving you, and you continue to do it, that is also a choice. And so for me, when I realized it was impacting the quality of my life, I really wanted to do everything in my power to change it. And that involved reading books about it, talking to people about it, seeking professional help, but really looking at the patterns in my life and identifying the ones that were helpful to me and the ones that weren't. And really, one at a time, building the strength. And the great thing about motivation and willpower is that once you accomplish one thing, you feel empowered to say, what else can I do? What else can I change? And so a big part of life, I think, is managing fear. Kids are scared, but adults get scared too about different things. I remember actually on my birthday, or on your birthday, we started talking about fear, and you were like, what are you afraid of? And I thought it was a really important question, because adults, we're afraid of things like, how am I going to make money? Like, what's my life going to look like? Am I going to do anything that matters? Like,
Didn't
different
you
things.
say you were afraid of heights?
Yeah, well, heights are the most obvious one, but there's also bigger things that adults are afraid of.
All right.
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of, I think that kids just think like adults have it all figured out, or at some point in life, you're going to have it all figured out. But I think that there's really no point in life that we have it all figured out. But to me, I think that that's something that's very comforting, to know that nobody has it figured out. Like, there's always a question and always a challenge and always a fear that everybody has. So it's kind of nice to know that we're not alone in it, right? Like, we're not alone in our own fear. Everybody has fear.
Yes, totally. I think that fear that we're talking about, or at least that, in some ways as children, we have things more figured out because things are taken care of by people around us that love us, and we're learning and we're growing and we're in the social atmosphere. For me, it was the point after I finished college that I became fully responsible for myself, that I realized, oh wow, the world is a much more difficult place than I understood as a child. But that's also the exciting part about it, is navigating that and learning new things. And I think we should always keep learning. That's how we keep growing and keep healthy.
What were some of the biggest challenges you faced while trying to change your lifestyle?
Well, I think when you try and change your own behavior, when you see things that, are causing you pain or prolonging your sadness or depression, I think the hardest thing is it takes time. It's not something that happens overnight. Like, habits are so deeply ingrained in us. It takes a while to form a habit. It also takes a while to break a habit. And so I think patience is one of them, like being kind to yourself. I think part of the reason people can be so unhappy is that they have these really high expectations for themselves, which is important if you want to achieve things and have ambition, but counterproductive if it starts to become punishing to yourself. And for me, I guess a lot of it was just being more accepting of myself and self-love, and just kind of, not walking around with this tremendous guilt or anxiety about not achieving certain things by a certain point in my life. And I guess that was probably the biggest challenge, was just being more patient with myself.
Do coffee beans make you fart the same way regular beans do?
Great question.
Okay.
No, I think it's important. I mean, this is health related. We should probably ask the doctor here, but they do help me go poop. Not necessarily fart, but coffee definitely
Same with my
evacuates
dad.
the system. Yeah.
True.
A lot of people drink coffee to get it out of
Yeah.
their system.
Ben, can you share any specific strategies that you had to help with the challenges that you had?
Yeah, one of the biggest ones, well, I'll say two. One was seeking therapy, talking to someone, which has a big stigma against it, but I found it incredibly helpful, and I think that it's getting destigmatized now. And the second is meditation. And meditation has had a huge impact on the quality of my life in ways I couldn't have anticipated. And I think the combination of the two is really helpful because therapy, being able to talk through what you're going, because sometimes we're ashamed to say that we need help or that we're struggling with something because we feel judged or criticized. So being in a private place where you can talk to someone about all these things you're struggling with, and they're really to listen so that you can get it off your chest. And once you say it, you're like, I didn't even realize I was feeling that way or thinking that way. So there's a pattern identification process that happens by being able to talk to someone and say like, oh, these are the things I keep doing over and over. I didn't even notice that I was doing them, but now that I've listed them out over time, there's things I'm doing that I probably have control over. And then meditation, which is sort of a disruption to normal thought where you just kind of clear your mind of the constant chatter, is a way to untangle those patterns. So I feel the combination of the two is really helpful. But meditation for me, I started probably 7 or 8 years ago. And it's really, it's 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes at night. There's all types of different meditations. But it's sort of like giving your brain a rest from this constant narrative that we tell ourselves because, we've developed and evolved in such a way that we're constantly looking forward and worried about the future because that was part of our survival, and constantly looking back and analyzing if we did things right because these were the two things that helped us survive. But now we have an overactive anxiety and overactive depression because maybe in our daily lives the basic needs are met, and so our mind kind of projects into the future and in the past. And meditation says just be present. Just stay right here for a minute, not thinking of the future, not thinking of the past, which is really difficult. I know you guys meditate too, but by doing that just 20 minutes a day, you start to build an appreciation that all these thoughts that are coming through my brain are not me only. There's something deeper than that going on, which is, can you be the sky and the thoughts are the clouds passing through? And the storm that comes through will pass also, but I am the sky. And that perspective shift have been so helpful to not get caught up in these negative thought patterns or worries or stresses. So I would recommend meditation to everyone, I think.
On that note about meditation, for a lot of people, it's very difficult to start meditating. I think that's probably, once you start going with meditation, I think that it just becomes a part of your routine. But I know a lot of my patients have a lot of difficulty just starting with that process. What do you recommend to start with meditation? Like, do you recommend taking a course? Do you recommend using an app? Do you just think it's something that you can just do? How would you recommend that?
Yeah, beginning meditation is incredibly difficult. I think most people, even me who's been doing it for 8 years, my mind is still racing most of the time, and I have to constantly remind myself to come back to my breath. And so if you try it 2 or 3 times, or even for a week, it's really easy to be like, it's not my thing. Like it's not helping. I don't see any benefits, and I can't even do it. Like I sit down and my mind's racing and I'm impatient. I would say one thing is to give it a month at least, and just say no matter what, even if I'm like fiddling or whatever, that I'm just going to give it 10 minutes a day, let's say. And an app to me sounds like the right place because everyone's got it on their phone. It's low overhead. After a month, you start to notice the changes. It doesn't happen after 1 session or 5 sessions. It really takes a month, sometimes 2 to 3 months. And then you start to notice through the day, like, oh, that running chatter that was telling me, I'm not good enough or comparing myself to others is starting to get more quiet. And that in itself is a huge weight lifted off of you. But it takes a little bit of a commitment. And usually, for me, it took getting to a spot where my old patterns of thinking weren't serving me anymore, and I was actively looking for something different. And I think if you want to get rid of self-criticism or doubt or fear, if you feel that's something in your life that's really overpowering you, then it's worth investing in meditation, because that's for thousands of years been proven to be one of the things that can lift that anxiety from you and help you live a healthier lifestyle.
Okay. And how do you think that your life has improved since adopting a healthier lifestyle?
It's improved tremendously. I would say one of the best ways is my relationships, my friendships, my relationship to family. Because I don't have this expectation of what I'm trying to look for out of it. I don't put pressure on it. So it's really made that ease of relationship more prominent. My work has improved professionally. I work in a creative field, as we're talking about with movie making, and creativity is a very present art form, and being able to listen to what's going on as opposed to tell or express more purely has been really helpful to be in the present. And in general, on my day-to-day life, I don't live in this kind of anxious state anymore. And that was really detrimental. And as we know, like, your negative thoughts can lead to negative health outcomes too. Your mind really determines a lot that happens in the body. And so by relieving that, I feel much healthier as a person.
Did you help anybody else with doing meditation?
Absolutely. I have I've given the app that I use to a lot of different friends. It's called Waking Up by Sam Harris. And I feel in some ways part of my purpose now is to help other people relieve suffering from their own lives. Because having put a lot of suffering on myself that was self-made, I didn't even realize that I was creating my own suffering by saying, I'm not good enough, or, I should be doing more, or comparing yourself to others, which I think social media is really a challenge that your generation is going to face more and more of, which is looking at other people and feeling bad about yourself. And having the distance to say, like, I'm good enough, really comes with things like meditation, where you're like, I'm not going to get caught up in these thoughts because they're self-destructive or they're not helpful. So I tell everyone to meditate, and people have to be ready to want to hear that. I think it's great that you guys are doing it at such a young age, because it'll form this habit for the rest of your life that'll really help reduce stress.
Yeah, I think for any habit change, there has to be an intrinsic motivation. You can't just tell someone to change a habit. Like,
Exactly.
that has to come from inside.
What would you say to your 10-year-old self?
That's a great question. Can I say to my 15-year-old self?
Sure.
Okay. Because 15, I think adolescence, when you get into the teenage years, which you guys will be approaching soon, you're in between childhood and adulthood in a way that a lot of the decisions you make then will be lasting and affect you. And especially this kind of, there's, all these things like smoking and alcohol, they kind of come into the picture to teenagers. And so for me, I would just say, don't look outside of yourself for things to make you happy. Try and find your own happiness inside. I think that it's really easy to say but hard to do, which is to be happy with yourself. And if I'm being honest, talking to my younger self, I would say, don't be too hard on yourself.
Okay.
Are there any specific goals that you still have?
Yes. I think it's important to have goals, because if you're not aiming at anything, you won't hit anything. For me, as an artist, as a storyteller, I feel that story has this incredible power to inspire and reshape our own narrative. So what does that mean? Like, we all have a story that we're telling ourselves. I am Ben, I live in Southern California, I make movies, I'm looking for these things in life, I come from this culture, I have this family. That's my story. And when you see a film, there's a story of those characters on the screen. And what happens when your story and that story comes together, there's some synthesis and transference that helps you grow and shape and transform. And so for me, my purpose is how to use the power of storytelling to break the unhealthy stories that we tell ourselves and people. And so, again, going back to the relieving suffering, how to help people stop self-criticizing and stop doing destructive thinking that will allow them to be more at peace with themselves, because that's when you can really live a healthy lifestyle. So I guess the things that I've found, the tools that I've developed that have taken me a long time, I really want to share those in some way with other people that I see suffering like I was, because I know how painful it was to suffer. So one of my biggest goals is to help other people stop suffering.
Okay.
So I have a question for you. So you had mentioned about how you leaned on therapy, how you leaned on meditation, how you leaned on your friends. But in terms of your family, what kind of support did you find from them? Was it difficult to approach them with your problems, or, you know, is there any way that you would recommend to approach them? Because sometimes families, you know, we're much more willing to share things with our friends than with our own families. So how was that something that you navigated?
Yeah, it's a really great question. I think, well, first off, I'm grateful to have a family that is always there for us. I think that culturally, you know, Indian families or Asian families or, you know, any kind of homogenous culture, there tends to be more of an emphasis on family. I think that, you know, I'm half Indian and half American, and so I've seen two different sort of like family mindsets, and I'm really grateful over time to lean on my family because of that. It can be challenging to talk to family because these are people that have known you your whole life and you have a more complicated relationship with, whereas friends, you know socially, and there's a certain safe distance from, where family intrinsically, being vulnerable, you know, when there's been pressure on the relationship, or, you know, being criticized or punished for sharing things, can make it more difficult. I think with cousins or people your own peer group, we're kind of moving through life at the same age and, you know, going through similar challenges. And I guess being able to be vulnerable if you really need help, you know, like if you're like, I'm really struggling with this, to find those family members that maybe have gone through similar things, whether it's aunts or uncles or parents or cousins. We move through life in this convoy together, and they've seen us when we're young, when we're old, when we're healthy, when we're sick, and so to have that to lean on, I think, is a real gift.
What are you most proud of that you did in your life?
Wow. I would say developing a mindset of kindness. I think it sounds really simple. It's not like a professional thing, but, you know, a lot of people are sort of really concerned about themselves and their own success and their own, you know, happiness, but really serving others and treating everyone with an open mind and being kind, I've found, to me, gives me the most in return. And so, and it doesn't always come naturally. I think that it really is, you have to be intentional about it, to be kind to each other. So that's something I'm really proud of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind to each other.
Okay, so now we're gonna do some limericks. Do you know what those are?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
A rhyming poem.
Yes. So we're gonna
First
do
line,
it.
2 lines.
So basically,
Yes.
what we do is we're gonna tell you this rhyming thing. It's a
Okay.
poem thing, just like you said, and you have to guess the last word of it. So
Okay.
all of us are gonna say one, and hopefully you're not looking at this paper.
I'm
right
not
now.
looking at the paper.
Okay. So then we're gonna tell one each, and then you have to try and guess the last word. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Statue's hugs are like a warm embrace. In his smile, there's an endless grace. With mischief in his eyes and love that never dies, in our hearts, he holds a special.
Place.
Yes.
All right.
Yay!
I was gonna say rubbing poo on Neal's face,
Oh.
but then I realized that wasn't the right word that you intended.
Okay. There once was an uncle, a director so bold, whose visions on screen would unfold. With actors in tow, his stories would glow. In cinema's brace, his tales are.
In cinemas, can you say the last line again?
Yeah. In cinema's embrace, his tales are.
Bold? No, you already said bold. Tails are told.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
His
Tails are told. Good.
Actually, that's very passive writing, and as a writer, I object to that.
Whatever. Okay.
Whatever.
You go on.
Whatever. Okay. All right. There once was a brother, unfit, but he decided to change bit by bit. With workouts and sweat, he's now feeling great. In his journey to health, he won't.
Take a. Wait, sorry. Oh no, I can't say that. He won't. His journey towards health, he won't. And it's rhyming with fit and bit by bit. Can you read the last line again?
In his journey to health, he won't.
It's talking about how good you are,
Right.
motivational.
He won't. But it's a negative, so he won't.
No. It's not a negative.
Yeah. Can you give me a hint about the word itself?
It ends in T.
Well, that I knew because it rhymes with bit.
It rhymes with bit.
What about
Yes, we stumped him.
Okay, can't we just say it?
No, wait. Just read the last line
Okay,
again.
can I just tell you something though?
Yes.
It's a positive something because it's talking about how you're going bit by bit, where you're working out,
Right.
you're sweating,
Yes.
and you're committed.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so now I
Okay.
know. Now say the last line.
In his journey to health, he won't.
Commit?
No, quit.
Oh,
Quit.
he won't quit. Oh, okay, all right.
He won't commit.
We want you to
Opposite
commit.
of
Not
commit.
positive.
Right.
No,
Listen.
he
You know what?
won't.
Quitters never
No,
win.
he won't.
We already said it. How about you say shh, and I'll say the end of it.
He won't. Shh.
It. That way it's not technically a swear word.
Okay.
You guys, I'm really excited. Thanks for having me on the show.
You're
I think to talk about mental health, I'm actually proud of you guys because we're talking about some very adult things, and I'm curious, how you perceive it and when, as we move through life and discover these things. But these are really important issues, and I think they're not talked about as often because there's a stigma or judgment against it. So thank you for allowing me to come on the show and talk about it with you guys.
I want to thank you so much for coming on and being vulnerable with, an audience and with your niece and nephew who, maybe you wouldn't have otherwise talked about these things with them at this point in their lives. So
Right.
it's really great and it's really lovely that you're being so open and so honest and so generous with, everything that you've been through.
Right, and
So,
so
appreciate
public
that.
too.
And so public about it.
Oh God.
Okay.
Well, you kind of ambushed him, so
Wait.
he didn't really.
That's true. That's
Sorry
true.
about that.
No, that's okay. Sometimes it's a friendly pressure.
Thank you for listening. Please subscribe, like, and tell 3 other friends so that we can donate more money to Tara.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Bye-bye!
Wellness wizards.
They're like pretty
But
far.
I want to go there so then we can do
We're
like
at the
a
little
trip.
salon here, just cleaning up the beautiful handiwork. This is Maya's beauty salon. Metrosexual, totally gender balanced. I only did white though, because I didn't want to really stand out. Even though Valentine's Day is right around the corner. She wanted to do both hands, I said only one. Ever since Maya got these nails, she's more like this. Like she really communicates a lot with her nails.
She does.
And then she loves to put them like, I'm not making fun of you, I'm just saying, if I had nails like that too, I'd be like, you don't talk to me that way. See, this is where the nails come in handy.
Hold up.
You know I like her where the girl from the Bay at. Did she like, don't say it again. Cause to me she got that thing, but to her I'm just a friend.
It's really the nails.